Hello and welcome to another edition of The Checkpoint. In tonight's edition of the program, the Managing Director of the Gambia International Airline, Lamin Cham, is our guest. He shed more light on his institution's missions, amongst other things. For more, join Yoro Jallo for details.
Mr. Lamin Cham, Managing Director, Gambia International Airlines, welcome to The Checkpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Jallo.
Let's begin by telling us about the Gambia International Airline, a brief of the Gambia International Airlines.
Gambia International Airlines is the national carrier of the Republic of the Gambia. It was incorporated in January 1996 to engage in provision of air transportation and related services. When I say air transportation, that is a movement of air passengers from the Gambia to destinations outside. And related services are those services that are connected to this air transportation, such as ground handling. Ground handling have both ramp handling and passenger handling. You have cargo operations. You also have travel agency services, that is the sale of air tickets to people traveling. And as you know, as the national carrier, we have also been involved in the transportation of pilgrims to and from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and of course other services that they require in the kingdom during their stay of the Hajj.
We will come to the that aspect of it, that is the Hajj handling of the Hajj aspect of it during the interview proper. Okay. But who is funding GIA?
Gambia International Airlines is owned 100% by the Gambia government, because fundamentally Gambia government is 99% shareholder and 1% is owned by Gamtel. But you see, Gamtel is also owned by Gambia government. Mm-hmm. So that is why we normally say it's owned 100% by the government of the Gambia. From inception, some shares were issued that, as I said, we are bought by the Gambia government and Gamtel. But GIA fundamentally has been self-funding since its inception in January 1996. It actually started operations in March 1996.
Now, do you have a plane?
No, at the moment, we do not have a plane. And since its inception also, the company did not have its own aircraft. We do actually ventured into flight operations. Mm-hmm. During the history of the company. Mm-hmm. We made some attempts, quite a few. Some lasted for relatively a longer period, and some did not last long. But fundamentally, we are looking at the possibility of getting back into the air, because the key mandate of the company, Gambia International Airlines, is to provide air transportation services to the Gambian people and people resident in the Gambia. But since the inception of the company in 1996, this is an area that we have not been very much successful. Albeit, being successful in related services to this air transportation. Like, for example, ground handling. When aircrafts come at Banjul International Airport, we handle them. We get the passengers down. We get the cargo and the baggage down. So we clean up the aircraft. And all other services that the aircraft will require, we provide those, services.
How is competition like for you in the sub-region, considering other countries, institutions like yours are operating, they have their own planes flying all over the world?
If you look at the history of flight operations or air transport service provision, in our sub-region, for one reason or another, national carriers have not been very very much successful. For example, until recently, there was no national carrier in Senegal.
Okay.
I think it's about a year ago that government came in with some funding to actually restart, Air Senegal, operations. If you look at mighty countries like, for example, Nigeria, there's no national carrier. You look at the likes of Ghana, and some other, big countries, national carriers have not been successful. But notwithstanding, Gambia International, as a national airline of the Gambia, is looking at, possibilities. We are weighing options to make sure that we get back into the air, because that is our key mandate.
Are you thinking of working in collaboration with other continental or sub-regional airline operators to, to restart this lucrative venture?
Yes, of course. Because airline operations or flight operations is very, very capital intensive. At this point in time, it will be extremely difficult for GIA to do it solo. For example, we've did some costing to establish how much it will cost, for example, to operate flights for 1 year. And I can comfortably tell you, on estimate, it will cost about $972 million to operate flights just for 1 year. And currently, we don't have that, capital with us. So what we are looking at is partnership.
Are you scared of competing?
No, we are not. What we are saying is that, flight operation is capital intensive. So as a result, it will be very difficult for us to get into it alone, that is going solo. So as a result, we are looking at possibility of forging partnerships with players that are already in the market. So we join them and operate on a partnership on joint venture activities, so that we can also get into the market through that way. For example, we have initiated discussions with Senegal Airlines. They are just our next door neighbors, and I think we can negotiate with them and see how best we can partner, to jointly operate flights. So fundamentally, for us, who haven't gone in yet, so we are looking at partnership as a way of getting into the air. So with time, when we gain some little bit of strength, then we can look at the possibility of standing on our own now, and then start to fight and compete. But for now, to get into air transportation, we are looking at forging partnerships through which we can get back into the air. And then of course, yes, we have some good players in Africa. Ethiopian Airlines, for example.
Yes, I'll come to that one.
Yes.
Because I know they are your major partners.
Exactly.
Your key partners.
They are our key partners. In the past, we even used to charter their flights to operate, Hajj. So we have that relationship with, Ethiopian, and we want to leverage on that relationship, to learn from Ethiopia. What did they do that, made them so successful, over the years. So once this COVID-19 lockdown is over, certainly we will get very close to Ethiopian Airlines, to see, how best we can work with them. One, in providing air transportation services, that is passenger services, for example, between Banjul and London. We are looking at that possibility. And of course, we understand at the moment, because of this COVID-19, the air transport industry will slightly change. So the other time I was watching the CEO of Ethiopian Airlines on CNN. He said now it's a question of survival. So they are developing strategies to survive. And one of their strategies is to convert some of their passenger planes into cargo planes.
Okay.
So they are looking more towards cargo, movement of cargo. And thankfully, Gambia International Airlines, we have an ultra-modern cargo complex at Banjul International Airport here, which has some cold storage facility that can store perishable items, say, for example, from our horticultural and fisheries subsectors, ready for export to overseas markets. So we also want to work with Ethiopian and see the possibility of, getting some of these cargo flights to Banjul, so that our growers in the horticultural sector, our people, our freight forwarders in the fishery subsectors can also export their produce, to overseas markets, notably European markets. Because as a cargo operator, we have acquired the requisite licensing that is now enabling us to ship cargo directly to European destinations, to European markets. So we'll also be working with closely with the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Agriculture, to encourage farmers in this country to upscale, their level of productivity, because we have a cold storage facility here, so their perishable items have a place that they can be safely kept, ready for airlift to overseas markets.
Okay.
Right. So we see the possibility of working on this, through partnership with Ethiopian Airlines.
Okay. Well, Mr. Cham, many people will say GIA is not heard about much, except during Hajj time. Is that the case? Fundamentally, it has to do with the nature of our industry and who we actually work with. We work with mainly airline customers. These are airlines that fly into and out of Banjul International Airport. So a greater part of our activities is directed towards airlines operating. So it's like our connection with the public mainly is two areas. That is Hajj activities and sale of air tickets. Okay.
Yeah. So our connection with the public is mainly Hajj, and second, to some extent, sale of air tickets. So probably this thing has to do with our target market. Our target market is the pilgrims and those traveling, to public. But our major activity at the airport here has to do with airline customers, and those are just numbers. So most of the time, what we do is we do personal selling, person-to-person contact with those airlines, so that we can have them as our customers.
Okay.
Yeah. So probably that is why GI is not much hard. But albeit we are changing the situation now.
Okay.
With this complex cargo facility in place now, and with Hajj and sale of passenger air tickets, certainly now GI will engage into aggressive marketing.
Okay.
Because now we don't only have to deal with travelers or pilgrims. Now we have a facility that we can sell to the farming community, that we can sell to our export community. So certainly, from now onwards, GI will be engaged in aggressive marketing, so that we are better heard. We also have our Facebook pages. We have a website, and all these things are running, carrying information about the activities that GI do.
Okay. Yeah. Now, how much has the pandemic affected and helped transform your work?
Well,
that is the COVID-19.
The COVID-19 has impacted almost every sector of life. But we in the air transport industry and the aviation industry, we are the most hard hit by the coronavirus. Because, for example, there is a global lockdown. Airports all over the world at the moment are locked down. So as a result, planes don't fly from one destination to another. And if you look at our job, most of our activities, it coalesces around the aircraft. If the aircrafts operate into Banjul, we handle them. We handle the passengers that they transport, and then we generate revenue out of that. So if aircrafts are not coming, so it means we are not generating any revenue from our ground handling activities at the airport here. Two, we are engaged in sale of air tickets. You sell air ticket to passengers to fly. If there are no aircrafts coming, so people are not flying, so you are not selling. So that area too, we are generating virtually zero revenue. Now you talk about cargo. it is the airplanes that fly cargo. So if airplanes don't come, no, irrespective of the volume of cargo that you have, there is going to be no cargo, movement.
Absolutely.
So if you look at our activities, it all surrounds the aircraft. So once the aircrafts are flying, I can assure you we are fine.
Okay.
But once the lockdown is there, we are generating very, very limited revenue from our activities.
Let's come back to that.
Yeah.
Well, what's the relationship with the Gambia Civil Aviation Authority?
Gambia Civil Aviation Authority, they are the custodian of the airport, and they are the body that is responsible for regulating the aviation sector of the country. That is the Gambia's aerodrome. Sometimes people find it difficult to distinguish between GCA and GIA. It's just like a landlord and somebody who has come to rent. So for us, we are a business organization, fundamentally renting at the airport and providing services at the airport. So it's like it's a big brother and a small brother. GCA are the big brothers. They regulate the industry.
Okay.
They also regulate the activities of GIA and all the players at Banjul International Airport.
Okay. So
So they have some sort of an oversight, over GIA, and not only GIA but other operators, at the airport.
okay.
Yeah. But of course, we work hand in glove, to make sure that we develop the air industry together.
Interesting. So what's the GIA exit strategy? I mean, going to change forward. What exit strategy have you after the COVID to change things?
As I said, the post-COVID will slightly change the work culture of the industry. For example, the way we work, we are told that the COVID is here to stay for a little while. So we are also adjusting, our work procedures and systems to make sure that the employees remain safe and the passengers that they are processing also remain safe. But we know that passenger activities post-COVID-19, will gradually pick up, but it will not be an accelerated rate. So therefore, the strategy globally, as I said earlier, is shifting to cargo, movement of cargo.
Okay.
So that is one more reason that we are working with Ethiopian Airlines to see how best we can jointly operate cargo from Banjul. Because if situation change, we also have to shift strategy. Otherwise, you will be left behind, and then you cannot survive. Yeah.
Now let's let me take you back to the Hajj, which you are very well comfortable and known of in this country. Sure. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has announced it's allowing a minimum of 1,000 people drawn from diverse backgrounds to conduct the Hajj this year. Would you say this puts a hold on previously the conceived possibilities of the holy pilgrimage taking place in 2020?
Actually, Gambia International Airlines is just one of the Hajj operators of the Gambia. They are regulatory and policy institutions responsible for Hajj. For example, you have the Gambia's Ministry of Hajj and of course the National Hajj Commission. So these are the bodies that are required by law to make pronouncements relating to cancellation or otherwise of the Hajj. GIA as an operator cannot make that pronouncement. But leveraging on our experience, as you said, and looking at the time from now to Hajj, fundamentally with no arrangements in place, one can conclude that definitely this year, 2020, Hajj is not going ahead. But as an operator, we are yet to receive a formal communique from the Gambia's Hajj Ministry and the Gambia's Hajj Commission. So we await such communique. But as you said, through social media nowadays, information flows like what. So we also had informally from Saudi that international passengers or pilgrims will not be allowed to perform Hajj this year.
Okay.
But notwithstanding, we haven't received any formal communique from the Hajj Ministry or the National Hajj Commission.
You've been advertising for some time ago, or some time a while. I believe most pilgrims usually used to deposit. If that is the case, how are you going to handle that? Or if you have, people, would-be pilgrims who paid, and this year it's highly likely there will be no Hajj. How are you going to handle that situation?
Yes, honestly, people have been depositing for Hajj 2020.
Okay.
And I think on estimate it's about 160 to 180 people that have already deposited with GIA in anticipation of performing Hajj 2020. But honestly, it's unlikely, that Hajj is not going to take place. Okay. So as a result, some are seeking for refund. Okay. And this is made available. If you ask for a refund, you want your money back, we give it to you instantaneously. Okay. Even this morning, before we get into this interview, I have signed some few checks. Refund, yes. Okay. So the Hajj money is there, it's in the account, it's intact. Nobody touch it. Okay. Yes. So anytime anybody wants a refund, you can come for your money, you will get it one day.
Do you have a percentage of that?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Because if not for the corona, if you deposit with us and then you want to withdraw, so we will say that, well, we also have to take something in the form of administrative, expenses or whatever. But had not taken place this 2020, it's not our fault, and neither the fault of the intending pilgrims. Absolutely. Yes, it's because of the pandemic. So as a result, if people look for the refund, we give them 100%, the money that they have deposited with us. But to this point, I will urge the intended pilgrims, particularly those who deposited with us, to leave their monies with us, because something interesting is likely to happen. We have intended pilgrims for 2020, but some are also planning for 2021. So by the time we are getting to 2021, so the number is likely going to surge. So as a result, if you withdraw your money, next year if you want to go, maybe you may not get a place. Okay. Because there are some who plan for 2021. Okay. So those for 2020 did not go. So it's like you combine the 2 years, the number may be more than the quota that is allocated to the Gambia. The quota allocated to the Gambia is 2,000. Okay. Last year it was 1,700. Okay. But thankfully, with the help of the Ministry of Hajj for the Gambia and the National Hajj Commission, and our officials, in our missions in KSA, that is Riyadh and Saudi Arabia, the minister and his team, they pushed very hard. They did an excellent job to ensure that the Saudi authorities increased the Gambia's quota. And with the help of God, they were able to secure an additional 300 for the Gambia. 1,700. Yes, so now the Gambia's quota is 2,000.
Okay. Yes. But unfortunately,
as we celebrate as operators, because this thing has widened our market a little bit, so unfortunately, it's not going ahead. Okay. Yeah.
What would you look back at all the years, and what are the main takeaways? Okay, you will like for travel companies, service providers. Like if you are to look back, the past it was okay. Coming the COVID, it has hampered everything. So, what is, as head of a travel agency, can you give us a comparison?
As a takeaway, we have realized that our industry is very, very vulnerable. For example, I'll give you a few examples. Sometimes around 2014, 2015, we had this, Ebola outbreak, and then it affected air travel, and then, it affected our revenue as ground handlers at the airport. So, Ebola became history.
That was during the Ebola.
That was during the Ebola, and then, after the, 2016 presidential election, we got into the political impasse. So some flights started to drastically scale down their activities. Some stopped coming. Again, that hit us very seriously. It even made us to register losses in 2017, from our P&L. So we recovered a little bit in 2018 from losses to profit making, and then we hope that this trend, profitability trend will now continue, and then we are hit by this
2020 comes.
2020. Because undoubtedly, anybody can tell you that we are going to register massive losses.
Absolutely.
So our industry is vulnerable. So as a result, now what we are looking at is the possibility of diversifying our activity basis so that we broaden our revenue streams, so that we are not over-reliant on few revenue streams. Like for example, today, 80 or 90% of our revenue comes from ground handling, and then the others come from Hajj, cargo, and travel agency. But we are still broadening the revenue basis. We are looking at the possibility of getting into flight catering. At this point in time, aircrafts don't uplift catering from Banjul because the facility is no more there. But we saw it as a business opportunity, to get into providing catering for aircrafts that come into Banjul International. So that will be an additional revenue stream for us.
Okay.
Two, we are working on the possibility of constructing an aviation academy, in the Gambia here.
Okay.
So that one, we who are the local players can use that training facility to locally train our people. Now, comparatively, that will be more cost effective than having to send our people outside overseas all the time, for training, because overseas training has become very, very expensive.
Yeah.
So as a cutting measure, we will establish this training academy here so that we can locally train our staff. Again, the industry bodies, for example, IATA and ICAO and other bodies, can also use the facility to conduct some of their training in the Gambia here, using that aviation academy.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are looking at a whole lot of possibilities, looking at various ranges to broaden our activity, so that we can broaden our revenue streams. So that in an event of this nature, we will not have been over-reliant on few revenue streams, and that can definitely give you a problem. So if this window closes,
the other ones will
open. Will open.
Okay.
So that is our strategy coming out from this COVID-19, that we must broaden our revenue streams.
Okay, but Mr. Cham, how quickly can companies like GIA rebound from the impact of COVID-19?
Is mainly dependent on one thing, and that is the volume of traffic coming into Banjul International Airport.
Okay.
As long as there is traffic and the volume increases, I can assure you our revenue generating capacity will be very quick, and then we can recover from this I cannot call it a demise, but this crisis as quick as possible. But if the rate of flight activities to Banjul International Airport remains very, very slow, it will take a little bit of time for us to get out of the crisis. Because IATA, which is the regulatory body for airlines worldwide, predicted that by the time the air transport industry get back to its previous status, it will be until 2024.
Do you foresee the country returning to previous growth level, possibly or especially in the travel sector?
Yes, for sure, because the population is increasing, and as a result, the number of people traveling is also increasing. We have a whole lot of Gambians also abroad who always travel back to the country and then go back to wherever they live. So as long as this global lockdown is over, we are expecting more passengers to travel. Some definitely want to see their families. They are not seeing it. And of course, we have also seen that GCA, our big brothers, renovating Banjul International Airport, putting up fantastic structures, fantastic systems in place. So Banjul International Airport, together with GIA, GCA and other players, we want to make it an envy for our sub-region. And I'm sure passengers will continue to have a very good experience traveling through Banjul International Airport.
Finally, how soon can travelers and GIA clients expect the full return of service delivery at the Banjul International Airport?
One is depending on two things. For government to reopen the airspace. Once government reopens the airspace, flights can come. But it doesn't stop there. Air transport is global and is connected. There is that interconnectedness globally. We expect that other airports will also open soon. And when that happens, flights can depart from other airports to come to Banjul International Airport. But if we are open and others are not open, activities cannot take place. So it is connected regionally as well as globally.
Mr. Lamin Cham, Managing Director of the Gambia International Airlines, thank you very much for joining us on Checkpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Jalla, for having me.
Bless you.